Hello adventurers, I'm Gray, and it's Friday. You know what that means? It's time for another Hytale vlog update. And this one is a little bit technical. It is about new points of interest in adventure mode, aka prefabs or prefabricated content. And it was talked about a little bit in the world generation vlog update that I went over. But this goes into more detail about the creation of these sorts of things. And when I talk about prefabs, if you've played Minecraft before, think of things like the dungeons you'll find underground, or strongholds that have the end portal, or even NPC villages you'll find on the surface. Just structures that can spawn randomly in the game are those types of prefabs. However, Hytale seems to take it quite a bit further than things like Minecraft, so we're going to go into it in detail. Starting off, they say building content for Hytale involves a collaborative process they've developed over the course of more than 3 years of work. Which, thinking about it, I don't know if they've mentioned they've been working on the game for 3 years at this point. More than 3 years, actually. The closest thing I've heard is in the Hytale FAQ. They talk about how the current team working on Hytale split off from the team working on the Hypixel server about 2 years ago. However, that blog update was a couple of months ago, so maybe it's been longer. Now that I think about it, the fact that they've been working on the game for over 3 years makes sense based off of how much has already been made and the fact that they said they split off over 2 years ago. But that's a long time to be working on a game, so I'm hoping that they've done a lot of stuff in that amount of time. In this blog post, they're going to demonstrate the process by showing how the artists and team developers work together, starting off with this elemental stone circle, which is the earth circle found in Zone 1. And these different circles were shown in concept art already, but it'll have that in this blog post, we'll get to it. In this case, an initial rough build was done in-game to outline the basic look and feel. So you just throw some blocks in, you give it a sort of glow, and this is basically the feel of the elemental circle of Earth here. I don't think there's too much hidden in this scene. It might be a little bit, but I'm just doing a rough outline of all the blog posts on the Saturday updates. So this very early version establishes the mood of the piece and its role in the game, because points of interest like these are an aspect of Hytale's world quest system. In other words, these types of prefabs and structures have a meaning in the world story, in the quest system, in trying to get things done, those types of things. They provide reasons to go exploring, and players will come to recognize that type of encounter they're about to face whenever they see one. So in these stone circles in particular, they act as an arena for combat encounters that's triggered when players interact in a particular way. It's very vague here. I'm sure there will be various methods you can start a combat encounter, and the combat encounters will vary in many different ways in the type of fighting you're going to be doing. But that's the basic idea of the circles going on here. And when this basic outline is established, the next step is for a concept artist to produce more detailed variations for each of the zones. So this concept art was already available. I never really talked about it much though, or at all yet. And I was planning on going through the concept art sometime in their own separate videos, but I'll go ahead and mention a little bit about this here because it finally gives the details as for what these are. So starting off with the Earth circle, this is the one that the concept artist drew for the Earth section, which we're seeing being made right here. And as they say, it has a bit of asymmetry instead of an ideal circle in order to give it a more natural feel. And this is for Zone 1. So if you move on to the Zone 2, we have the sand circle. Zone 3, of course, has the frost one, and then Zone 4 has fire. And each of these, once again, will be their own combat challenges based off of the zone that they're in. These designs were created by artist Paulina Legato. The creation of a new prefab often begins when an artist is provided with a brief, but the nature of it varies. So the two ways are that they either have some idea of what they want to do, but no visualization yet, in which case they have a lot of freedom in their drawings, or they have a more fixed brief, and then they have to determine the colors to use, or the types of blocks can be used, what the atmosphere could be in the general shape, and things like that. And then the world team takes this art and goes with it and tries to make it fit within the world. They try to recreate the mood, see what's possible to build, which looks as close to possible to what the artist envisioned. So it's a collaborative effort between the artist, the world team, and basically everyone in the staff. And here we can see that the world team built a rough outline in a little bit more detail. And you can also see a little skeleton archer right there, having a good time. Along with some clouds, some fog, some glowing crystals, which I believe looks like thorium. I believe thorium was the green ore. So this picture here is an early version of the prefab built by world team developer Baxter, and they're adapting the original art into block form by choosing the block types, adding details, and establishing the size and shape of the point of interest. He'll build it as close as they can to what the concept artists have made it to look like, but they don't really work together. It's not really collaborating live together. Instead, the concept artists make the art on their own, with their own creative freedom, try to make it however they want, and then the build team takes that art and tries to implement it into the world. They're not like trying to draw it like blocks or anything like that. And for that reason is to give them more creative freedom, because from what they've seen so far, the concept art they make, the build team can basically make it no matter what. They said there's maybe only one time they've drawn something that the build team wasn't able to make, and I'm quite curious as to what that one thing could be. What was it, like a sphere? Let's just draw a spear and make that out of blocks. That's a good idea. That's illegal. In reality though, they try to avoid using as many curves and things like that because it makes them noisy and hard to build within a block-based environment. Otherwise though, the build team can make almost anything. So, moving on down here, the collaboration starts to really begin where they work together live. So one example of this is up here, where you make a paint over of the previous build, and I might overlay these two pictures over each other, but if you compare this picture up here and this one right here, they do look different, and zooming in on it, you can see that they're covering up some parts that are a little bit too bulky, maybe adding on little pieces at certain points, making it more circular, but still leaving this opening right here. And by doing that, you give the world team, the world builders, a better outline of how the concept artists want it to look actually in-game. So, using the in-game build as a base, you have ideas for implementing the flow of the stone circle, now adapted to the scale of the piece as it will appear in-game, and it needs to have a sequence. They'll also take advantage of the dev server, which I assume is the way that the developers can play the game on their own private server, working together and collaborating on it to gather feedback and work on improvements. So they have devs get on there and interact with it as a player and see if it feels alright within the game's environment. There are usually 5 or so iterations in game compared to just 2 at this drawing stage. You get a lot of feedback and there's more to work with. So now we have a more finished version of the build. You can see here that it's more round now. It has more of a sequence where it goes big at the back and the middle and then gets smaller again at the sides. It's just a nice flowing little build now. And it's the finished Earth Circle as it may appear in-game. However, they're still working on this type of stuff. The final step in implementing this type of thing is incorporating it into the Hytale's world generation system, so you need rules that develop how and where it can spawn. And anyone who's played Minecraft will know that there can be lots of problems depending on where things spawn, like villages spawning on the edge of cliffs, causing the doors to be miles high in the air. Villagers can never leave, it's really hard to access. It can be really annoying depending on where they spawn, and there can be a lot of randomization. So, for example, if the circle does appear on a hill or cliff edge, the prefab spawning system will adapt the shape to suit. Now this is where it's different from Minecraft, because Minecraft doesn't really adapt it. It kind of just puts it in there and hope that it works, and if it doesn't, you have to deal with it, build up to the door, or do something about it. Here, it'll change the layout of it in order to make it work within the world. So if it's on a cliffside, it'll still look good in some way, and I'm curious to see how they'll do that type of thing. So we got a little video here showing how it'll look as a player. You walk up to it, you can see that it has some crystal in the middle, along with crystals all over the inside of the walls of the circle. And I'm guessing this is thorium, because thorium is the green ore that has been confirmed to be in the game. I'm not 100% certain this is, though. However, I'm guessing by the look of the monument in the middle of the circle, the battle is started by mining up the ore in the middle. Most likely. They say you interact in a variety of different ways in order to start it, and that looks like the most obvious way in this build here. So that's the end result, a unique landmark that combines the feel of a handcrafted build with the dynamism provided by WorldGen, and they've built thousands of prefabs. They've gone over that in the WorldGen blog update, varying degrees of complexity, and they'll build many more as they flesh out the zones that make up the world. As for what happens when you activate it, you're going to have to wait and see. Thanks very much. So many details. Yeah, but this blog post isn't very important in terms of setting up the plot or things like that, but it is a nice little technical look at the way they build these structures for the story. And they've shown a couple more structures here, including a ruined settlement. And this brings up the age-old question of who lights the candles in these settlements if no one's been there for so long? If this is a ruined settlement, who lights them? It's the Skyrim problem. There's not too many details to point out though in this, other than it's a nice looking build that's way more detailed than something you'd find in a game like Minecraft. It reminds me more though, if you've played Minecraft with mod packs, if you played with Hexit for example, back in the old days of mod packs, Hexit was basically an adventure-based pack where the goal was to explore, find builds, destroy monsters, and loot them for very interesting loot. And it had more builds like this, more detailed ones, though. This looks a little bit more detailed than even some of the Hexit builds. Though Hexit did have some really big structures in there, so we'll have to see if there are any prefabs that big. Moving on, we have a Trork Watchtower, which is a very dark image. I can't really see too well on it, but you can see the Trork up there very clearly, drooling away, probably getting angry at birds and throwing spears at them, as Trorks tend to do. And finally, we have a Crumbling Castle, which is a castle that once again is falling apart. There seems to be sort of an overriding theme going on here of different structures that are falling apart due to age, wear and tear. Perhaps Varen caused problems in the land and a lot of it had to be abandoned. But if it was abandoned in a hurry, I'm sure there's lots of great loot to be found within them. And that's basically all for this blog update. Once again, it was a pretty technical one, but I like the technical ones sometimes. It gives me some stuff to talk about. It can be interesting to learn how they make the things. I'm really hoping for some story-based blog updates at some point, though, or maybe talking about some more of the other NPC races. I want to see one on the Fear Ants, that would be really nice. Either way, though, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. That's all for now. Subscribe for more Hytale content, and I hope to see you all on the next adventure.